www.belleville.ca under the agenda minutes and live meeting video on the left side of the screen. If you click on November 28th on the calendar, it will bring you the agenda for today's meeting. There's a hyperlink on the agenda in the event you wish to look at the reports, and you can follow along. I will call this order to meeting, and we are all present. A moment of reflection.
Grant that we may be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Please be seated. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to declare an indirect pecuniary interest on agenda item 6.2 and agenda item 9A, bylaw 2022-159, first, second, and third reading.
Okay. What was the bylaw, sorry? Bylaw number?
2022-159.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for the regular council meeting minutes of November 14th, 2022, and in the regular in-camera meetings minutes of November 14th, 2022. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Carr. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Today's deputations, which are all expected to be around 10 minutes. I'd first like to call Bev Woods, representing Gift from the Heart, here to make a deputation to council. Good afternoon, Bev.
Good afternoon, Your Worship.
Next slide.
Is this one?
Yep.
Perfect. So for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Bev Woods. I am the CEO and founder of an organization charity here locally called Gift from the Heart. So I just want to bring you up to date a little bit. You'll probably see some familiar faces of our new directors coming in on board next month, some of them local residents, when we're kind of changing our direction to include more of our community. Also, we just hired our first employee for 2 days a week, which is Noelle Bunt, and her husband is a local dentist who has been with the community for many, many years, and so was his father. So the mission of the Gift from the Heart is that we're a nonprofit Canadian charity connecting oral health care professionals to vulnerable Canadians who encounter barriers accessing essential oral health care. Every 9 minutes, someone goes into our emergency rooms because of dental pain, most commonly caused by tooth abscesses. Every 3 minutes, someone goes into a doctor's office because of dental-related problems. But physicians are not trained to deal with disease affecting teeth and gums, so they cannot provide treatment. They can only prescribe antibiotics and painkillers, which do nothing to solve the problem. The cost of $38 million annually to avoid healthcare costs for problems that should be treated by oral healthcare professionals. So from barriers to solutions, what are they? Some of you have probably seen this vehicle throughout our community. This was donated by Hastings Paramedics to us in June. And this vehicle provides essential oral health care. We do preventative services such as oral wellness checks, life-saving oral cancer screenings, and preventative care provided by dental hygienists. Me. So in 2008, I launched Gift from the Heart. Back then, there was 25 independent dental hygienists who owned their own practices. Of that, 16 said, yes, we're on board. It was in February because of one of the saddest months of the year. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't have loved ones. It's also a very hard time after Christmas with high spending. So we called it Gift from the Heart, and now many years later, there's over 250 locations, not hygienists or dentists, but locations across coast to coast to coast in Canada that provide free care on our National Day of Giving. We have lots of supporters and partners and some donations along the way. Some of our proudest moments was when Gift from the Heart was noted. I was noted as the L'Oreal Paris Woman of Worth for Canada, and with that came a $10,000 check towards the charity. Also, when we got our first ambulance from the Northumberland paramedics, back when everybody was in lockdown. What were we able to do but go up and down streets with our speaker on that vehicle, offering oral health care products, toothbrushes, toothpaste, denture cream, denture adhesive, whatever people needed. We were out in the community when other people's stores were closed. So we had a chair put into our first vehicle. We've been able to pack boxes. This is our National Day of Giving. We pack hundreds of products and send them out to locations all across Canada where free preventative care is provided. We're giving back to our communities one smile at a time. We are currently asking dental offices to donate their space. We bring in the professionals, dentists, dental surgeons, dental hygienists, and we provide the care. When You Make Me Smile in Trenton did their free dental day, I triaged 104 people through our community cruiser to ensure what type of care they needed. It's a partnership. We're working together to provide solutions. Oh, there's a familiar face. Who is that guy? So this was our first vehicle that we had, and we've continued to grow from there. You can see the volunteers that are extensive of what we're doing, but there's still more to do, more places to go and more people to see. So many people, 24,000 people in our community alone are without oral health care services. What did we learn by doing some of these preventative days? That 83% of people cannot afford dental care. 3% feel discriminated, and I'm sure that's higher now. 10% have anxiety trying to get into a traditional dental practice. And 98% of our community rely on these free dental days. So we're trying to get to those people the best that we can. And, you know, the stories are endless, the testimonies we get from people, our neighbors, our friends, people that live right here in our community who do not and cannot access preventive care and feel discriminated on. And their smile is related to their whole body health. So to keep our community healthy, we need to start in the mouth. The mouth has to be recognized. It joins us all together. So I want to talk a little bit more about what's up next. And this is the big thing that you all are finding out about that you probably don't even know exists. I'm building a mobile outreach dental center. I purchased back September a 24-foot car loader. I wanted to remove some of the barriers to putting accessibility, wheelchair ramps and so forth in, which is very expensive and very costly to put into a trailer. So this is near completion. I will have it done by the end of this year. God willing, that I have the funds to complete it. But this is starting to look like a dental office now. So there's complete sterilization on board, x-rays. I can park this in the middle of a farmer's field, level it off, and provide IV sedation, extractions, fillings, urgent care. Get the people out of pain. Why are they sitting in an emergency department for 8 hours when all we're going to give them is painkillers and antibiotics? We're not removing the teeth. We're not helping them get back into their normal function of life. So we need to help more of the Janes and the Johns and everybody else in our community to feel better. So I'm asking for your help, and that help comes in a couple of different ways. One is financial, and the other one is find me a location to plug my vehicles in so I can provide the care. I know it's not a lot to ask for, but it is. I'm finding it very difficult to find a safe place to put my vehicles so I can sit and work and provide the care. Some place where people know where I am. What would be the best place for me to be set up? But maybe outside a hospital? Maybe where everybody's going to, a community center? Someplace where I know that in a tin can by myself, I'm safe to provide the care. And I'm asking you to consider a $10,000 annual line item on your budget for Gift from the Heart every year to help with the maintenance and upkeep of my vehicles to provide care. And that has been provided to the clerk for your consideration. The last thing, I would like to invite you all to the unveiling of this magnificent vehicle that I'm building, and it's the invitations are going out. I hope that you will all come and see what your community has to offer. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. You're the lady that's had this going quite a few years ago, and I met you at the United Way.
Yes, that's me.
I commend you for growing as large as you have.
Thank you.
In such a short period of time. And I know the people that would benefit, so congratulations. So right now you have 2 ambulances or 1 ambulance right
2.
now?
I have 2 ambulances and then now this mobile vehicle being built.
And how often are you out in the community with it, like that particular vehicle?
The ambulances are out 2 to 3 times a week.
In specific locations, or you go where there's a...
Where the need is. So, and also the funding. I hate to say it that way, but you know, we receive funding from Brighton, then it's for the Brighton residents. So every dollar I get goes back into the care of that local community, whoever gives the funding. The grant funding that I received from Belleville went to purchasing a dental chair. So, yeah.
So the vehicle that you want to park, you want to park it for a week, a month, 6
No,
months?
probably, no, just on a daily basis. So it might be every first Tuesday of a month I'm at that location, so people know and get used to seeing us at a location.
I'm sure the city can find some ways of working that, get locations, but I commend you for your work.
Thank you.
It's definitely badly needed, especially with the unemployment we have, where the mental health has become an issue. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I just remember the one you showed me, and what you've grown to is commendable for you.
Thank you.
and
Yeah,
for
there's a
yourself. Thank you.
huge gap between 18 and 65. I'm not duplicating public health. I retired from public health, so I get calls from the people public health is turning away. Something has to be done for those people.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, Bev. It certainly is a valuable service. Do you have any indication, is there any buy-in or any support from the dental community? Do you have any big-hearted dentists who are
No.
helping out in this regard? No?
No.
Okay, well, if any of us here, I know a few.
Yeah,
so-
great. I did just bring on Dr. Gord Bunt, who has joined us, and Dr. Saxena from Brighton, who have joined the board this year. But I've tried for ever to get a meeting with the dentists.
Well, I think that might be a necessary piece going forward.
So anybody
Thank
has
you.
those connections, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering, do you have any wish list places that you would like to see the larger trailer parked at? Have you already kind of sourced out where would be the best spot in order to access some of the people that you're speaking about that have the most vulnerability?
No, some of the places that we looked at, even for the smaller vehicle, for the ambulance-style vehicle, it just wasn't conducive, even at Grace Inn or some of the other locations, because of the visibility that I need. I'm on my own. Now, obviously, in the trailer, there'll be 2 or 3 people working from the trailer at all times, a little bit different. But even when I'm out doing the preventative care, it really has to be more of a level situation, shore power, so it can be plugged in, so I can run, keep warm or cool, whichever the season may be. But to have the area for parking and visibility so that I'm there. I've been at all the food banks and been there from all our surrounding areas. So that's where I started. My ventures was plugging into at the food banks. But again, it's you have to meet the greater needs. So the greater needs is, let's get us around. Let's get this around to, give me a number of locations that I could do it from, and then we'll book in from there. So the people don't have to worry about transportation as well.
Thank you, and just a follow-up to that, what are your needs in terms of the power source for that
It's just a
trailer?
straight
Is it-
outlet.
It is?
Yeah,
Okay,
it
that's
sure
great,
is.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, no.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Bev. I know you've been at this for a while now and making
So
great progress.
Shows what?
Well, I don't mean it that way, but just your work. And I remember when you came on the scene and willing to do this. And the challenge is that not all families or individuals have a dental plan.
Right.
And a quick Google search today, here at council and all the staff at city, we have a dental plan. And I see some of our finest here from Belleville Police Service, they have a dental plan too, and hopefully everybody on this 4th floor has a dental plan. But if you don't, and you have young kids, dental filling on average in Ontario, $600. Teeth cleaning, 200 plus. Extractions, 200 plus.
Oh.
That's
plus.
cheap.
Yeah.
And you mentioned and I hope, are these stats regionally, 83% can't afford a dental treatment. 83%, think of that number, in our own backyard. And I can speak to myself, a couple of years ago, I had a root canal, and it was over $2,200 by the time the whole procedure was done. So think about that. If I didn't have a dental plan, $2,200 is a big hit. So, I think you do wonderful work. I just wanted to continue to support you, and I think it's, you know, kind today to also acknowledge local dentists that have had their special day. I've witnessed it myself right here in downtown Belleville, right beside Metro, lining up at midnight when the dentists and the hygienists and all the team, you know, are willing to help out somebody with a dental issue, and they're lined up at midnight. That says a lot about the needs. So
That's right.
continued good work. You got my backing, and I think the backing of all of us here, because if you have a sore mouth, something bothering you, you can only take so much Advil. If you got nowhere to go, think of how you feel, right?
That's right.
Feel hopeless.
Yeah. You know, surveying, you did ask me about the dentist. So surveying the dentist here in our local 87% of the dentists in our area do not welcome those on social assistance at all. So we have our CHC, our community health center, who does, but they're overwhelmed with the number of people. There's no place for them to go. I'm not taking work away from anybody. You know, I'm not a threat to anybody. I'm just providing that a solution to that gap that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point, someone has to step up and say, hey, you know, what can we do? How can we make a difference? And together, we can make that difference. So thank you.
Councillor Alstop?
I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I just wanted to thank you, Bev, for coming today and for all the great work you do in our community.
Thank you.
I work with the Enrichment Center for Mental Health. I see Sarah Baring from our Welcoming Streets program here. I know that some of their clients have had work done through you and have really appreciated that. You can see the change in them, both from a confidence standpoint, but also as it relates to the pain that they're feeling and having to deal with on a daily basis. So thank you very much for that, and certainly I'll be bringing an item to a new business, requesting a staff report to get you some of those items that you're looking for.
Great. Thank you so much, and stay well, everybody. Thank you.
I'm looking for a resolution that the deputation by Bev Woods representing Gift from the Heart introducing an outreach mobile dental center be received. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Alstop. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have Louisa Sorrentino, Executive Director of Downtown Improvement Area, BDIA, will make a deputation to council.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council, and members of the community. My name is Luisa Sorrentino. I'm the Executive Director with Downtown Belleville BIA. And I am here today in front of you to have, to bring to your attention the need for our Welcoming Streets program to continue. Before I do that, I want to thank all the incredible support that we have here today, and for you to have read this big package that we sent you with all the letters of support and the big PDF with the summary of the data and information that we have compiled through the last 1.5 years with the program. When it comes to the acknowledgement of the support that we have here today, I would like to thank the Belleville Police Services, all the stakeholders that are here, and we also have some Welcoming Streets client. So some of you already know all about Welcoming Streets, but I'll just give a very, very brief summary of what Welcoming Streets is. I was in council chambers here in August, I believe it was August 8th, for another deputation, which gained us support in principle for the program, but not the financial, because at that point we were waiting to hear from Hastings County. That application resulted in us not getting funding for the program for 2023, because that funding is no longer available. But as you know, the health of the city core is very important and reflects on the city health as a whole. And as we're elevating the profile of the downtown Belleville, we need to service two categories, the different categories of clients that require this high impact, proactive, person-centered, and community-based approach. So Welcoming Streets has resulted in a stronger community and a stronger engagement with all the other partners that we have that work in the community service sector. And this program has been essential and has attracted a lot of attention in Ontario as a whole between all the other communities. And some communities have decided to replicate the program, and we also received a policy and advocacy award in Niagara Falls this year. So an outreach worker named Sarah Bering wakes up in the morning and comes to downtown and receives a number of calls. And some of these calls are from business and property owners, some are from visitors, some are from other stakeholders that are either experiencing or witnessing a stressful situation of an individual in distress. So she meets them one-on-one and tries to de-escalate the situation where there is an individual who's experiencing mental health crisis or disturbing the peace or violating the bylaws, you name it. She will meet with them and de-escalate and also connect the individuals with the resources that are available in the community, serving almost like a bridge between the agencies and the actual individual, because the system is very hard to navigate. So she helps with that, compiles case notes, helps with case management or delivers case management. And with this trauma-informed approach, with this rapid response, and mental health first aid that she also delivers to some of the businesses and stakeholders in the downtown. She has helped also educating the community and building that sense of belonging and inclusivity that we all need and talk about. So who have we spoken to? Well, obviously before coming here, today we have exhausted all our avenues before asking for funding. And because this program is downtown focused, it does not fit very well with other partners that could potentially offer additional support in the way that we would like to see it implemented. So I also would like to take the opportunity to remind everyone that the BIA has the mandate to bring prosperity to the downtown. So it is needless to say that we as a community need to address the crisis and the damage of the perception of safety that results from this crisis. You have received a report with the summary of all the data. We have also contacted our stakeholders last week with the Welcoming Streets survey. The full survey report will be available this week on our website. But anyway, for now, just to give you a brief summary of what we've seen from the responses is 31 respondents composed of property owners, business owners, and partnering agencies have responded. I know it's really small, hard to see, but we have about 25 that have identified Welcoming Streets as an essential service, and 93% that believe that Welcoming Streets is actually addressing social issues and the perception of safety in the downtown district. So it is very important that we continue to prioritize Welcoming Streets as a service because not all crisis situations are a police call, and poverty is also not a crime. So at this point in time, we've added this video, even though the video was actually produced before the deputation in August. So Chief Callahan is here today, but at the time he was not available. That's why we had made the video.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Council, invited guests, and Welcoming Streets Belleville. The Welcoming Streets Belleville initiative, I believe, has made an incredible difference in the way that we are being able to effectively support our members in our community who are suffering from homelessness. And this has been a significant game changer for our entire community, but also for the Belleville Police Service. When we look at our calls for service and we look at the number of calls that we're seeing decreased in dealing with homelessness in our community, it's all as a result of Welcoming Streets Belleville. And I believe that Sarah and her workmate Louisa have done an amazing job in making this difference. So on behalf of the Belleville Police Service, we are strongly advocating for the support of City Council to ensure that this initiative moves forward. The difference that it's made in our downtown core, and as you can see by the numbers of business owners that are here today to support this initiative, it has made a significant difference. So I would respectfully ask for your consideration in this request for funding moving forward for 2023. And thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I was hoping to be there in person, but unfortunately I'm away at some training. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. So we have, we're very grateful that we have 3 community officers that we work with on a daily basis. They're all here, so thank you. Constable Gervais, Constable Brittany Blake, and Sergeant Doucette. So thank you so much, everyone at the police services for your support. So key consideration and challenges that have pushed us to, again, advocate for this program are that, of course, the Welcoming Streets program prevents a lot of calls to BPS, so it does have also a financial impact on the city as a whole. Again, we have data that shows all of those calls that have been averted. And of course, the change in perception when we see someone who's actually talking to the vulnerable individuals, who's talking to someone who's showing that they do have a mental health crisis that day, it kind of helps feeling safe in the downtown. And when that perception changes, people are also more prone to come downtown for shopping or for dining. It's a very complex issue, and we also address the education part with the program, with the business community as well. And of course, we have to consider that the hours of operation that one person can cover are not enough. One person can only cover Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, so we would like to expand the hours of operation, prevent workload and burnout. Sarah has been connected and counseling actively about 102 people, so that's her caseload. That for anyone working in social services would probably appreciate that is massive. And of course, when she's off, or God forbid, she's sick, the program is not running. So the individuals are basically left on their own, and there is certainly an impact on business as well in that respect. And of course, long-term plan, like we obviously need to look at some kind of long-term solution that helps, because police involvement is not a long-term solution. So we need to be proactive and continue this program. And then we have a message from our Welcoming Streets steward, Sarah Baring, who's also here today, but we've decided to do the video so that just in case.
Hi, I'm Sarah Baring, the Welcoming Street Steward with the Downtown Belleville District BIA, and I have a story for you.
On a rainy afternoon in June 2021, Sarah's phone rang. A community partner was calling her for assistance in supporting an individual experiencing a mental health challenge. As an outreach worker, Sarah headed over immediately. Sarah offered the individual a poncho for some temporary relief from the rain and spent the next hour with the individual empathizing with their story. At the end of this interaction, the individual turned to Sarah and said, "You saved my life today. Thank you." Sarah has been conducting outreach in downtown Belleville for the last 14 months and continues to hear those exact words. "You saved my life today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stopping." The Welcoming Streets program has connected with over 90 individuals with over 500 unique interactions. A rapid mobile support service opens a world of opportunities. With each unique interaction, there is an opportunity to meet people where they are at while connecting them to complex services, to support a business with an unknown circumstance, to prevent calls to our local police unit, to break down barriers to accessing services, to reduce stigma, to create a place where everyone belongs, and to change someone's life.
So what's next? The Welcoming Streets program has been a trusting and reliable resource for the downtown community for the last 14 months, but it's due to end. This program has shown to be a vital resource for businesses, individuals, and community partners. So I say to you, this program needs to continue. Individuals need it.
When I meet with Sarah and sit with Sarah, she actually treats me like a human, I'm actually worth something because I've never felt this good being around somebody in my life.
The community needs it. The city needs it. Please consider funding Welcoming Streets.
So, Your Worship, members of council, as you wonder whether the city can afford the funds for this program, I ask, can you afford not to? The health of the downtown, the health of the city as a whole, that's beyond beautification. It's creating a sense of belonging and it's place-making. Belleville is a tourism destination, and as we attract visitors to the downtown core, we must address taxpayers' concerns and the challenges of the unsheltered. Should Welcoming Streets not continue, we will see a decline in economic prosperity, an increase in Belleville police calls, a strain on community partners, and last but not least, increased barriers in system navigation for the vulnerable population, bringing us back in time, probably a decade. So here is what I'm asking. $140,000 for 2023, which will cover 2 full-time outreach workers, the delivery of the program and all the operational costs associated with that. That will obviously expand the program to cover the Saturday, after hours potentially, increase the direct outreach hours, and of course change the perception of the safety for downtown. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to, if I may, can I make a motion at this stage, or you want to? Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. First of all, I loved your presentation. Thank you so much for what you've already delivered to the downtown core. Some of the things that I just wanted to highlight specifically that you had said, poverty is not a crime, and I think that that needs to resonate a little bit stronger throughout our community so that people can really understand and hear that. Secondly, that ounce of prevention being worth a pound of cure. That was what I was thinking when you were talking about prevention in the downtown core. And I'm a very staunch supporter of this program because it does help to relieve some of the burden that is on our police services to respond to calls that are not necessarily criminal in nature. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. These points are pivotal in us making this decision. So thank you so much.
Councilor Mott?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Louisa, for your presentation. I think around the table, there's universal acceptance that this is a valuable program. I'm a member of the Hastings County Community and Human Services Committee, at which we received the report earlier this month that funding wasn't available for your program. This program was one of 13 that failed in the funding. And funding requests came in for 35 external agencies, all doing the same valuable work to varying degrees in various segments of our community. Total requests for funding for those were $3.7 million. Funding available was $1.7 million. There's a $2 million funding gap, and this falls squarely on the lap of our provincial and federal governments who are ignoring this problem. Requests exceeded the available funding by $1.9 million. We have agencies that didn't qualify, including Welcoming Streets, Gleaners Food Bank. This is an outrage. Dollars are hard to come by for every agency right now. I think around the table, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think there's universal belief that the strengthening of this safety net is crucial, not just for downtown businesses, but for the sake of our community. And we see the progress that our emphasis on community officers and the good work they're doing. You know, it just it cries for a commitment, however we may make it happen. So I'm sure Councillor Thompson's loaded up his gun with a pretty good motion here, so we'll see what he's got.
Councillor Enright Miller.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Louisa, wonderful presentation, and a thank you to you and Sarah, who is a brave, brave girl. It's so nice to see that you will hopefully have some help. I think it's a wonderful program, not only for the business owners downtown, but a lot of residents that live downtown. What a conduit you are for the other agencies. I mean, that's fabulous, and it is just a nice step to try to help the problem we have in the downtown core with the homelessness. And I commend you for your efforts, and I think I speak for everybody around the table. I'm sure you'll have our support, and we could only hope to make it even more robust. And what a great platform to jump off of, and maybe you girls have some more ideas in your little bag of goodies, so I'm sure we're all open to those. Thank you
so much.
Any other questions for the deputation? Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Louisa, for the presentation. Thank you, Councillor Millette, too, for that update. 35 agencies received, I guess, had applications, and 13 were denied. And I'm shocked to think that the Gleaners Food Bank, yourself, John Howard Society here in Belleville, and Not Alone team, amongst those that were denied. I'm disappointed to hear, but it'd be nice to get an information package from the county on what agencies got the funding, what was the difference between their presentation and you losing out like some of the others in Belleville. But I was a part of the conversation when Welcoming Street started in Belleville. I remember having some Zoom meetings back in the day with Guelph. They were the first municipality in the province of Ontario to do this. And we launched Welcoming Streets during a pandemic. And now it's happening in Brampton, Oshawa, and Cambridge. So we're on to something that other municipalities seem to be following suit. We were the second in line. And if it is a way to support our most vulnerable and let the police service do what they do best, and that's dealing with other issues. And Sarah and the team there have been, I've watched them in action, and it's really special to know that support is there, and building those relationships, calling someone by their name. You know, it's like amazing. That's progress. So yeah, have my support, Louisa.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Yes, I'd like to present a motion, but before I present my motion, I want to give good reason. Sarah and Louisa, I can't thank you enough. I had one occasion to deal with Sarah individually. I was downtown and there was one person in distress. I called the DBIA office. They got a hold of Sarah and Sarah got a hold of me. That Sarah come down, dealt with that person. And what it does is it eliminates the stress of the store owners, but it also eliminates the stress of the shoppers. You know, and so many times shoppers come down and if they feel any stress at all, they'll say, well, I'll go to the mall. And we don't want that. We want them to shop at the mall plus downtown, because that's really what we're for. If we don't have a vibrant downtown, these towns don't exist. That's as simple as that. Even though we got merchants in the mall, it's important, but downtowns are the vibrant part of the community. This program, and we all know that if the police gets involved, it's not just an hour. It's probably 6 or 7 hours by the time they're there, do a report, and get on with some other that's more important in different ways than trying to deal with a situation that if we can deal with it with one single person, this is going to be a big benefit to the city, to the councillors, and to the public. So I'm going to make a motion, and I have a funny feeling it's going to get amended, but I'm going to use the original motion that you wanted way back, and that motion is that council provide 2023 operating budget, pre-budget approval for the one-time issue of DBIA Welcoming Streets program funding in the amount of $80,000, with the funding source being the Casino Reserve Social Infrastructure Funding. That's only, I realize, only for one person. That was the original motion way back, and I didn't present it because we sent it to Hastings County looking for other avenue. But that's the motion at this stage that I'm going to present, and I need a seconder for that motion.
Moved by Councillor Jackson, or moved by Councillor Thompson. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Chatton. Discussion, Councillor Alstop.
I have a dead mic, so I'm going to go without it. Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate you calling on me. I think I would like to amend the motion to include the $140,000 for 2 positions. I think that this is an instrumental program. It's award-winning, and I think that
Seconder on the motion, Councillor Millette. Councillor Millette.
If I may, did you have an idea of where we might find the 140K?
yes, I would look to Acting Director of Finance and Deputy Treasurer, Brandon Ferguson.
Through the chair to Councillor Alsop, I'd recommend if it's one-time funding that it come from the tax rate stabilization reserve fund as opposed to social infrastructure, as it will overcommit that fund.
Thank you.
I think that would be fine.
Any more discussion, Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, can we use that as a friendly amendment? If I can have the seconder authorize that? Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And since we've got a motion on the floor, I don't have any questions for you, Louise. Thank you for your presentation. But since we have a motion on the floor, I'd like to just make a few comments. I think this is an excellent program. We talk about the perception of downtown. We talk about the businesses that are downtown. But the key factor here is we have a population who is struggling with chronic homelessness, struggling with chronic mental health issues. And this Welcoming Streets program provides that connection, if you will, to key services in our community. That's the important takeaway in this program. The fact that we'll derive some positive perceptions downtown, that businesses will feel more successful, that's a byproduct, I think, of the true issue here is working to solve some of these issues. I know that when someone's in a mental health crisis, it can be very daunting and not sure what to do. You know, in my career, I've been a crisis negotiator for almost 20 years. I was in Kingston last week at the mall, and heard some screaming, and it was someone in a car having a full mental health crisis. I identified myself, spent 45 minutes talking with her, completely de-escalated her and handed her off to the paramedics. No police involvement, no big deal. And I don't say that for a pat on the back, but I say is, if you have somebody who's at the right place, at the right time, to talk to somebody, to get them out of that immediate crisis that they're in, and then also refer them to services to get that support they need long-term, that's the win for this community. I think there'll be some other discussions down the road on this, but this is a vital program that I think we need to support. You know, unfortunately, we don't have casino infrastructure, social infrastructure money there yet. We spend it as we get it, but that was the design behind that program, was to ensure that we were providing money to vulnerable groups. But nonetheless, I'm satisfied that we have the money that's there. I would caution council that with pre-budget approval, it can be a dangerous game. But in this particular instance here, we're investing in our community, and most importantly, we're investing in the program that's going to help the people who need it the most. So I'll wholeheartedly support this. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Vote on the amendment first. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you so much.
Need a motion that council will rise and go into committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing, and recommendations. Oh. I had it on.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Ellis, and all the councillors for having us here today and receiving our deputation on the status of the Not Alone Team Quinty's Tiny Shelter Project. For those of you who are new to council, my name is Vino Narona, and I am the chair of the Tiny Shelters Project of Not Alone Team Quinty. And this is Debbie Lee Pike, and she is the founder and the executive director of Not Alone Team Quinty. She will help answer questions at the end of our presentation. So this Tiny Shelter Committee, we're a group of volunteers, a group of 11 volunteers who have been working together since September to launch a tiny community of tiny shelters for our homeless in Belleville. Over the last 3 months, we have made huge amount of progress toward launching this community, and I'm excited to be here with you today to share some of the progress and to ask you for your support as we move into the next phase of this project. So since our last appearance at council on October 11th, the Tiny Shelter community has been busy pushing this project forward. So since launching, we have assembled a team of 11 volunteers, planners, agency leaders, professionals, and people with frontline experience. We have gone through mission, vision, and values process to ensure that this volunteer team is all working toward the same goal. We have adopted a governance model so that all of our actions are accountable and transparent. We conducted 76 interviews with people actively experiencing homelessness in Belleville and drafted a report on the finding to ensure their voices are at the core of this project. We have drawn up a contract with a charitable partner on this project so we can offer taxed receipts for private donors. We have worked with planners, architectural technicians, and other professionals to create a site plan, fire plans, blueprints for the tiny shelters. We have created a 3-year budget to show the cost of the project as it stabilizes. We have purchased our first tiny shelter and displayed it on the Belleville Santa Claus Parade. We worked with city staff to identify potential sites that this project could launch. We placed a down payment on the next 10 tiny shelters so that the builder can have them ready in time for winter. All this we did with the seed funding that we received back in October. So we really stretched that $25,000 because we had all volunteers contributing all of their expertise. Every single one of them except our consultant, correct. We hired that consultant that we needed your support with. So I think we've done amazing use of the funds that you've provided for us, and I thank you, Council, for that. So this project has been moving at a very high speed, and everyone on our team can feel it. While it can be challenging at times, we're pushing hard because we know winter is at the doorstep, and that season is incredibly dangerous for our neighbors on the street. We've had relatively mild fall, but long nights and low temperatures are just around the corner, and the Not Alone team goal is to have these homes on the ground and habitable in time for Christmas. We know that getting these homes on the ground in time for Christmas is an ambitious goal, but we are doing everything we can as an organization to make it happen. We've built a team, created site plans, and worked with agency partners to ensure that we can provide services available and have the services available when the time comes. We even used a big portion of the seed funding allocated by council to put the down payment on the tiny shelters so that they could be constructed and ready before the new year. This decision was made carefully because we knew that to get some of our neighbors on the street safe and warm by Christmas, we needed to act immediately. The project has not been all success, though. At our October 11th meeting, we were instructed by council to apply for funding first to Hastings County. We applied for funding on October 31st from the Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative funding, and sadly had our application rejected. We had a very strong application that we put together. We had support letters from not just council, but also from Ryan Williams' office also gave us a very positive, and we give the budget. So it was a very complete and thorough application that we submitted. And that was all done by volunteers, putting their time and effort into. We are still pursuing private donations to cover the capital setup costs, but the rejection from Hastings County puts the project and its goal of a winter launch in jeopardy. That leads to our ask of you today. While we have an incredible team of dedicated volunteers and massive support from the community, both housed and unhoused, Not Alone team needs the support of the City of Belleville if it is going to get people safe in tiny shelters by the winter. We are asking today for two things. First, the approval of the municipally owned site to be used for 18 months as a launch pad for the project, for $500,000 in launch funding to help cover some of the capital and initial staffing requirements of the project. With a lease in place and some portion of the initial budget pledged by the city, Not Alone team will be able to return to Hastings County and ask and appeal to private donors to support the rest of the work. We're hopeful that with the support of the city, we can make good on the promise that we had written on our parade float, giving our neighbors in need a home for Christmas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I thank you so much for the presentation. That was very thorough. But who is the charitable partner that you have a contract with for issuing charitable receipts, if you don't mind me asking? That's my first question. And second, the site that you are asking for, the proposed site, where is that specifically?
So the charitable partner, we have a contract that we have put together, and it is in progress. And I don't know if I should share that information at this point because it is not confirmed. The contract has not been signed. We just have it set up. And the second question about the site is also the council the city staff is working with us on a location or a couple of locations. And that information is I don't think it's open to public yet, so I don't know if I should be at.
Thank you. I wanted to know for sure if we were on the same page with which site it was that you were hoping to get, or if you had several sites that you were after as a potential fallback, because I'm not sure if we can even put a motion forward to give you that support for those two asks without having those details already set in stone. So thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks, ladies, for the presentation. I still have your report that we were given, I think the last time you came to council, and just to kind of remind everybody where we're at, 75% of those experiencing homelessness have some type of mental health issue or physical health issue, whatnot. You mentioned off the top that you have purchased one home. And what was the cost of that home?
Do you remember?
$7,000, and that's not including the insulation because that was all donated. With the steel door was being donated as well, so about $7,000.
So
7,000 plus?
Yeah.
For the
No,
first.
it was, yeah, about
It was
$7,000.
$7,000
under.
for the first cabin. The insulation, that was by Queenie Home Builders.
Not,
Okay.
yeah, it hasn't been completed yet, but we have volunteers that are supporting us with those next steps.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned, and we heard earlier today, that you were denied by Hastings County. You put in a proposal. What was the ask?
It was $250,000.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned 11 volunteers have joined the team since September.
Yes.
Is that the same, like Rob, Chris, Lorna Brown that we were given? Those are the folks, so it's not like a new team, right?
No, it's the same team.
I think
And last question.
was added to it as well.
In your report from the last time, section 4.1, site selection. So there's, just so everybody's on the same page, there's a scale, 1 not good, 5 is excellent, how you rated it, right?
Yes.
So you touched on that there might be an existing place and you might have a backup. Is it tough to come up with close to wraparound services accessible for those with some challenges to get in and around? Physical buffers you have in your notes from residential lands and potential rent for 5 years. In the city of Belleville, in your negotiations for the last couple months, hitting this criteria, is that a challenge right now?
Absolutely.
100%.
We don't have a lot of spaces, if you will. Is that fair?
Yes, correct, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Councilor Enright Miller?
Thank you, Mark, through you. Thank you, ladies. Wonderful presentation. Sorry, can you hear me? Just a couple questions. How many are proposed? How many tiny homes are proposed for the site that's still not nailed down yet?
We have 10 that we're starting with, and
Right.
then second year to add another 10. And if it works well, then another 10, but not more than that
Not
in
more
one
than that.
location.
And sorry, I have not read the report. Newbie, we didn't have the report yet. Just another question, if you don't mind. So what does that look like? One person per tiny home, a couple people? They're not serviced homes, I suspect.
No,
They would
they're
have to have outsourced water and bathrooms, that kind of, is that right?
That's correct. So it depends. If it's a single person, then it would be one person. If it's a couple, we're not going to say you can't be with your spouse or your significant other or
Right.
a pet. So they would be included in that. So
Okay.
it definitely depends on if it's one person or a couple.
And do you have like a selection process that you've sort of are working on with your volunteers, and what does, I'm just
So-
curious.
So we're definitely looking at who's going to fit best in the wraparound services that are available, and looking at, what services they're looking for. So if they're
Okay.
looking for housing and they're actively looking for a job, or they're just kind of not there yet.
Right.
It's working with those services to determine, who's best for the program.
Okay, great,
So-
great initiative.
I can add some,
Yeah.
so the shelter itself will not have the plumbing facilities, the hub that we're creating, and that's the location that we're looking for,
Right.
to have the showers and the bathroom, and then the kitchen area, the communal space. So each of the shelters will, it'll be a safe space for individual dignity and autonomy, but having that, I think it's just going through that model of housing first, like literally stabilizing people, like as a opportunity to decompress and like have a space where they can just know that they're safe. And maybe some people might need to spend a little bit longer in there, maybe 3 months, maybe a year, but it's really not a permanent solution for any individuals. As we're working as a community to create these affordable housing, like it takes time, the brick and mortar takes time. So this is an opportunity to give 10 people an opportunity to just, decompress and get started in life. And as affordable housing becomes available, they can move through and be housed. So it's an opportunity to get stabilized before housing.
That's great, thank you. You answered my second question. It is transitional, just to help people get on their feet and move them out into society, into more permanent. Wonderful, thank you.
Councilor Thompson?
Quick question, thank you again, guys. The $500,000 you're asking for, is that over and above providing the hub central, like the washrooms, the facility that would be the central? So are you looking for the city to put that up, plus the $500,000?
So we're looking for the city to identify, give us a lease for a space for the hub, and we will do the renovations with our team of experts that we have on hand that are all volunteers. Like, I really see this is not a alone Team Quinte problem or a city problem. This is our community problem.
Yes.
Like, homelessness is not my problem, it's not her problem, it's all our
No,
problems.
and I'm not disputing that, please. I know it's everybody's problem. But what I'm trying to find out is the $500,000, I'm not disputing,
Yeah.
that in the future the city look at that. But would we be building that central hub for you with the
Yeah.
washrooms, the kitchen? Would that be the city's responsibility, or would you be looking to do that? That's
Right. So we will be renovating it, and the funding we're requesting is for the staffing and for the tiny shelters to the capital cost.
so you would build that hub then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming in today. I'm all just catching up on all the reading that goes with this particular project. And I just did a clarification, if I could. You mentioned your application to Hastings County was for $250,000, but your ask today is for $500,000. Could you explain the difference between that application and what you're asking the city for now?
Right. We did a little bit of like conversations in our committee, and like I'm getting that our budget, like, you know, to fundraise for that first year is going to take a little bit of effort on our part, and not that we're not able to. It's we're kind of afraid that we're not going to be able to do it with just, like, you know, hoping and praying that the community will step up. At first, like, I was really open to, like, it's going to be possible to fundraise, but I'm really seeing how difficult it is. We started a GoFundMe, and you know, it just takes some time to pick up, and we've got winter around the corner, and we just want the funding for the staffing and support.
On the next steps for the tiny shelter project be received. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? Carried. Resolution that council rise and go in committee of the whole to hear and consider reports, passing a recommendation and resolutions with His Worship Mayor Neil Ellis in the chair. Moved by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Alsop. All in favor? Carried. Reports. The agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council. 8A1, 2023 Prevost blanket purchase order. GMTOS 2022-27-2023 Prevost blanket purchase order PDF. Resolution in accordance with section 30.3 Soul and Signal sourcing approval. Reporting by the city purchasing bylaw number 2021-99, council authorized the issue of a blanket purchase order to Prevost in the amount of $300,000 for transit fleet repairs in 2023. Moved by Councillor Alsop, second by Councillor Chatton. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. 8A2, reserve fund establishment and rescinding. PDF 2022-10. Resolution that pursuant to Manager Finance Deputy Treasurer Report number DDF 2022-10, a bylaw to establish and rescind the various reserve funds be prepared for council's consideration, and that the balance of the environmental remediation. I quit. It's going to be a rough day today. Mediation. Reserve fund be transferred to the Environmental Reserve Fund, and that the Police Facility Reserve Fund be transferred to Police Services Reserve Fund, and that the balance of the Facility Reserve Fund, Harbor Reserve Fund, Road Renewal Reserve Fund, Capital Equipment Reserve Fund, Recreational Facility Reserve Fund, Sidewalk Reserve Fund, Capital Levy Reserve Fund be transferred to the Asset Management Reserve Fund. Moved by Councillor Omelette, seconded by Councillor Brown. Discussion, Councillor Omelette.
Thank you, Your Worship. And in the middle of a lot of this verbiage is, and they're all valuable procedures to consolidate and revisit some of our reserve funds. Some months ago, I had, some very few months ago, surprisingly and thankfully, I had moved, or I had asked that staff be directed to develop a reserve fund for the possible future purchase of environmental lands to be protected. Some creative work on behalf of our environmental services staff and our finance people, and they're here, and I'm going to ask them to give me a quick rundown of that. We have now created what's known as the Environmental Reserve Fund, and crucial in that will not only be, it's an existing fund that we had in place, and it will be basically revised to include what I had hoped to achieve in that initial motion, which just thrills me to no end. Funding for expenditures in the protection of environmentally sensitive and significant lands within the city from development through purchase or other means. As well, some of you may recall that in last term we declared a climate emergency for the city of Belleville, through which we are doing extensive work to revisit an awful lot of the way we do things, and working with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to access certain programs to help mitigate our climate impacts. So part of this fund will also be to meet the requirements and objectives of the municipal declaration of a climate emergency. If I could ask briefly if Mr. DeCola might give a few words on how we would possibly utilize some of this reserve funding going forward, and how it works, you know, in rescinding the environmental remediation reserve, which is still there. You know, those provisions are still there, but just a little bit on from the environmental services end on this this new reserve fund.
Mr. DeCola?
Through the chair to Councillor Millette and all council. The reserve fund was originally set up to deal with environmental issues that we had south of the track. So it dealt with former coal tar properties, some industrialized lands, and the tank farms. Those projects are starting to wind down, and there's still a fair bit of money that's still in those accounts for those reserves, been built up over many years to deal with certain remediations. This frees it up. It allows us to utilize the money for different objectives for the community. As our priorities have changed, where we set it up to deal with remediation, there's that word again, so that we could eliminate some of those liabilities for the community. This now gives us the ability to move forward on greenhouse gas inventories, reduction strategies, looking at ways of managing nutrients for the future 2025, 2026. A lot of these programs come down and our funding sources come out very late in the game. This gives us a bit of an objective to get ahead of the curve and to be able to be ready when the legislation hits the ground.
If I may ask Mr. Ferguson, there are some budget numbers referred in this one. Mr. Ferguson, if you could just explain, it's comforting to see that we've actually got a few pennies in the jar to start this.
Mr. Ferguson, the floor is yours.
Through the chair to Councillor Millette, yes, it's a rare occasion where I can come through with funding available and money available in a reserve fund to meet the expanded scope. This is an administrative process to broaden the scope for the environmental remediation to cover additional areas, as Perry has, the manager of environmental services has identified. But we're very fortunate in this respect to have already built up some funds to address these issues.
Thank you, and it's encouraging to know that it's not just a little bit of money. We're talking $2.259 million already in this fund, so we have some good money, and going forward, management and the contribution to the reserve fund currently at $100,000 annually. So if and when, and again, just for a little background, when we, in last council, when we used capital reserve funds to purchase lands in the old former Bakelite property, which will be kept in perpetuity for green space, hopefully that this kind of a fund, or enhancements to this fund in future. We do have an awful lot of naturalized land, particularly in rural Thurlow Ward, that may eventually, we have riverfront lands along that corridor in in Ward 2. Perhaps sometime we could have a nature preserve somewhere along the river that may have been slated for development. It would more properly be protected for generations to come. So I'm very, very pleased to see this, and I want to thank again Mr. Ferguson and Mr. DeCola for helping make this happen. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to the consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items as individual. Councilor Millette?
You gonna go around the table to see?
I was just see your hands.
Oh, sorry.
I guess. Yeah.
8B5.
8B5. Councilor Thompson?
8B1.
Councilor Carr?
8B1, 8B6, please.
8B6, you said? Yes. Anybody else? So we pulled 1, 5, and 6. Okay, that consent items be approved with the exception of 8B5, 8B1, and 8B6. Motion, Councilor Allstott, seconded by Councilor Brown. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 8B1, recommendation report zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 3014-20 Blessington Road, City of Belleville, number B77113, owner applicant 2706684 Ontario Inc., agent Bruce McCall Richmond, Glenn Schnarr and Associates Limited, acting manager planning report, number PP 2022-62. That the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to council, that application B77113 to amend the city's bylaws, zoning bylaw number 3014 as amended for 20 Blessington Road, City of Belleville, be denied due to the following: the ability of lack thereof by the city to enforce site plan controls related to provisions associated with air quality caused by truck exhaust abutting residential zone use, noise pollution caused by truck use in support of the associated businesses, including reverse or back up beeping alarms, and dirt, dust, pollution affecting the abutting and residential zone use. Moved by Councilor Carr, seconded by Councilor Allstott. Discussion? Councilor Thompson.
I'm going to be voting against the denial, but the couple of questions I want to ask, and I'm going to have to, would be to Director Steve. I'm going back to the planning minutes, which a lot of people don't have, but I brought them with me. And in it, there's about 6 points, and I want to make sure that the staff have dealt with all of these, and that is, first one is AD, land use compatibility assessment. Land use compatibility assessment, noise impact, traffic impact. The other one is the rounds of peer review were completed until all concerns were satisfied. Ministry of Transportation have reviewed the traffic impact study and confirmed that there is no concerns with the proposal. Staff have rescinded written correspondence from a total of 38 members of the public. 4 members of the public have spoken opposition. This application, as regarded to Section 2 of the Planning Act, which is consistent with provincial policy statements, conforms to the Belleville official plan, and maintains that general intent of the zoning bylaw. Can I just speak to, have Steve speak to, if each one of those has been covered extensively, and we're not at any threat of those items not being covered?
I think we reviewed all the staff comments, and there was follow-up studies and reports submitted in support of this application to address public concerns. Also in regards to items such as there was discussion on special topography on the site, those sorts of things. So we did follow up with relevant agencies. We did require specific studies. We had those peer-reviewed, so we wouldn't have brought forward the recommendation report without being satisfied that the public comments were addressed.
So staff-wise, and I know Councillor asked once, so as far as staff is concerned, we have done our due diligence to make sure that everything is covered for the use of this particular piece of land in all aspects. Yes? No?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Alstott?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and I just want to voice my support for approving this application. This has been something that's been before the Planning Committee since June 6th of 2020. It's been a 2.5-year process. Over that process, there's been multiple rounds of public consultation. There's been multiple studies that have been peer-reviewed by experts in the field. Our planning staff supported the approval of this application. I think that the applicant is a great local business. I think would be an asset to this community. And quite honestly, I was very surprised by this decision at the PAC committee. It seemed to me that this was pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to ask Chair and perhaps Deputy Clerk Stewart as well, is it sufficient that the motion pass or not pass, or do we need to amend it to approve the application request?
If I can answer, Your Worship, I think it's important if council does not support the motion on the floor, that a motion approving it is necessary to have that effect. So you can do it either way. You can amend the motion on the floor or defeat it and pass another motion.
I think I'd recommend voting on the memo that's on the floor or the resolution, then go to amending or go to a new resolution.
Right, thank you very much. And just to be clear, so that everyone on council is clear, that the motion is to deny. So voting in favor of it would be to deny the application.
Councillor Carr?
Yes, so I thought I would speak just as chair of the Planning Advisory Committee, and as Councillor Alsop points out, this application has been back and forth to the committee a number of times, and some of it for as a result of staff investigation, but also there has been some deviations from the original application from the applicant. So there's been delay on both sides, I guess is the best way to describe it. The biggest issue that the committee felt was just on some of the issues about WSP, which is one of the consultants, recommended some site-specific measures to reduce potential adverse air impacts, and it included, a posted speed limit, and then enforcing it both on paved and unpaved areas, idling of the trucks, as the motion points out, some setbacks regarding keeping some distance from residential property, and some buffering, things of that nature. And I do know that we do have other industrial properties where we're in a position where there hasn't been compliance by a particular owner, and then when we go to enforce, that we've had difficulties enforcing, and we've seen where tractor trailers are right up against abutting properties, and then at that point it requires court costs, and we've experienced significant delays. And I know I'm talking about a different circumstance, but I know that there was some reservations with respect to enforceability all the way through, including perhaps court action if it ever became necessary because of non-compliance through site plan approvals. So that was kind of the concern from the committee at that level, and that's why that recommendation came forward as it is. I will also say that there has been some consultation with staff, with residents, both formally here within the confines of the Planning Act and what's required under law, and then there also has been some meetings that residents have requested from elected officials, and I'm not going to shy away from meeting with anybody, particularly in the ward I represent. So I, along with Councillor Brown and former Councillor Sanderson before, had met with residents to hear their concerns, to make sure that their concerns were being brought forward. And so there certainly was robust discussion at that front as well. And So just to give a little bit of context as to where we are today with that recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Chatton?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I wanted to note that I grew up out there. I grew up out in Corbyville, and I have had a lot of residents that have reached out and asked me to consider some of their concerns. But I wanted to make it very clear to anybody that is looking at this that one of the biggest issues they have is whether or not this could be enforced. If there were issues with noise, if there were issues with pollution, if there were issues that would disrupt their daily lives. And I'd like to just hear from city staff saying that there is the ability to enforce and that there is a process that residents can reach out if they're finding that it is violating those concerns. Thank you.
Okay, and ask Director CAO Beauvais to answer that.
Through your worship, the council, certainly the city employs a number of bylaw staff that enforce numerous city bylaws, and our policy is always when we receive complaints, we investigate, we take whatever action that we're able to take to rectify the situation, and issues on this particular site would be no different than any other site in the city.
Any other questions? Councillor Brown?
Apologies. I would like to speak in support of the motion and the way that it's written. I appreciate and have worked closely with our city staff in engineering and development over the course of the last 4 years, and I know the amount of work that goes into these types of applications. The fact that this one has taken as long as it has, we can all appreciate how much work must have been going on behind the scenes. However, as a councillor representing Thurlow Ward, Ward 2, it's important that we also look at the proximity to where we're recommending in this particular thing. Not to zone from a people perspective, but more so to zone in terms of what's appropriate given what is surrounding this particular area. I appreciate that it may have been identified as industrial use, but when you understand what is actually surrounding this piece of property, we are talking horse farms, we are talking residential areas, we are talking prime agricultural land, and that while I appreciate this piece may have been designated as something different, putting in a commercial or light industrial business into this particular area just does not fit. So I would like to ask for your support in terms of understanding that Councillor Carr, Councillor Sanderson before me, Councillor Kelly, have all talked to these residents and trying to help everyone understand what is and isn't possible and what is and is not the concerns. And at this stage, I'm not convinced that this would be an appropriate use of this particular piece of property and that it's time we bring it to closure. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, and you'll call them out.
Okay, there's been a request for recorded votes. I'll start with Councillor Alsop,
No.
Councillor Brown,
Yes.
Councillor Carr,
Yes.
Councillor Chatton,
Sorry. No.
Councillor Enright Miller,
No.
Councillor Kelly,
No.
Councillor Millette,
No.
Councillor Thompson,
No.
and Mayor Ellis.
No.
So the results are the motion is defeated.
Motion's defeated. I'll now need a motion to approve staff report of rezoning as impact report. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Alsop. Discussion?
Recorded vote.
All in favor? Recorded vote.
Sorry, grab another sheet. And call the vote, starting with Councillor Brown.
Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm voting the right way. Could you read the motion for me again, please?
A motion to approve staff report rezoning as in November PAC report.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
No.
Councillor Chatton.
No.
Councillor Enright Miller.
Yes.
Councillor Kelly.
Yes.
Councillor Millette.
No. You gotta shut yours off. Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Alsop.
Yes.
And Mayor Ellis.
Yes.
The results of the recorded vote is it has carried.
Thank you. 8B5, amendment to contribution agreement, Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, CAO 2022-04, that pursuant to CAO's report number CAO 2022-04, amendment to the contribution agreement, a bylaw to approve and authorize an agreement between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation be prepared for council consideration, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement and affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor who pulled it?
Apologies. Briefly, this is an amendment to include the sports book, and I'm wondering if perhaps Mr. Ferguson or someone could, I know we've got Table A that gives the breakdown. How much more can we expect the city's share once this sports book is up and running and they're making their percentage contribution to the city?
I'll address that question to CAO Beauvais.
Okay.
Through his worship to council, excuse me. First off, I'll say it is up and running, has been for at least a month.
Oh, okay.
So the the collection of revenue will date back to when it first opened. And as you noted, the agreement calls for the city to receive 4% of revenue from the sports book, which matches what we receive from the live table games at the casino. They have not at this point provided any estimate as to what they expect in terms of business from that sports book over the first year. I think it's really too early to tell, and I to be honest, I haven't heard anything from them about how the first month or so has been going.
Okay, I'm just hoping with some of these requests that came to us today, this might be an additional source of community funds that we can funnel towards some of these requests, and it's welcome news. I myself am not big on this sports betting thing, but I know some are, and I know it brings in big money. So here's hoping that it can help benefit a few. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. 8B6, 2022 municipal election, 2022 post-election accessibility report, DS2 2022-31 PDF resolution. The council receive the 2022 post-election accessibility report. Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you. And I understand that the city clerk's required to provide this report with regards to the barriers. I would hope sometime in the future, not necessarily right away, but we would get some a post-election report just in terms of return, how many voted, demographics in terms of voting, things of that nature, just to get an idea of how that played out. So I look forward to that sometime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Resolution, council may adopt the consent items by consideration of such motion. Members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council consider such items individually. The agenda items be received with the exception of
8B, or 8CB, and 8CC. Sorry, 8C2B and 8C2C. Those two anyways. B and C.
Councillor Kelly?
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to pull 8C2A, the only other one. I was hoping Councillor Thompson would have liked that.
Anybody else? Okay, a motion that the agenda item. Councillor Thompson, 8C2A, I guess that was Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, I'm just, thank you through you, Mayor. I just was hoping that we would support the request with the letter for early childhood wage increase. The province hasn't moved on the $10 day yet with the feds. And I'm a member of the board for Family Space. I reached out to Kelly Allen today and wanted to know about, is this affecting Family Space as far as keeping staff and making sure that there's no shortage, that they have to shut down childcare. That's not the case for Family Space, but we saw it a few weeks ago with educational workers in Ontario making some just over $34,000 a year. We heard the reports over the last several weeks that low-income workers are a part of our education sector, visiting food banks and whatnot, and they're working. So we need to support this 18 plus an hour in workers in the child care sector. Hoping we can get approval to send a support letter.
So Councillor Kelly would like to move, request the province to address the child care workforce shortage by immediately increasing the $18 an hour minimum wage and providing benefits and launching and financially supporting an accelerated early childhood education program. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Chatton. Discussion, all in favor, carried. Yeah, anybody seconder on that? Councillor Chatton, go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I just want to ask for the support that we've received from a number of municipalities in opposition to Bill 3, which gives the Strong Mayors Building Home Act strong to the mayor. No offense to our present mayor, but I just think that that's too much power, and we've received requests from a number of municipalities asking for the different areas to support it. So I'm asking the councillors to support these motions, or these letters that we've received, and pass it on to the proper authority.
Discussion, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, this bill was passed on September 8th, but it doesn't hurt to certainly throw our voice along with the others. You know, with the whole premise behind the Strong Mayors essentially was that there are other municipalities that were roadblocks to growth. And, you know, I don't have the hard number right at my fingertips, but, you know, over the course of the past 4 years, we approved around 3,500 units through zoning. And there was one application actually off of Avonlow Road where there's around 750 units in that particular development. But we heard from the developer that it's going to take a decade to build those 700 homes. So, you know, what I would say to the province is that if you have municipalities that are being obstacles or gatekeepers to growth, then most certainly you may have to intervene. But in municipalities where we're demonstrating efficiencies in the application process, that we're investing in the digitalization of applications in order to expedite approvals, and that we're actually approving and never denying zoning applications when it pertains to development and growth, then, you know, with all due respect, the province could stay in their own lane. And this is a slippery slope, in my opinion, where you're eroding local democracy, and at the same time, you know, I'm sure we're gonna have a discussion here about another bill, but I would say again that if municipalities are demonstrating that we're clearing the way for growth and responsible growth, because there's a cost associated with that growth, you know, that we wouldn't have to require provincial intervention. So it's good to add our voice here. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Council, okay, all in favor? Carried. 2C, request of the province to remove certain amendments from Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act. 2022, before passing loss of local decision-making, Bill 23 does not work for Eastern Ontario, and reconvene the Conservation Authority's working group to work with the Ministry of proposed alternative improvements and refinements to Conservation Authority development review process. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for support, even though it was approved today in the House of Commons, Bill 23. But I think it's still important that we forward our opposition onto, in opposition to Bill 23. So I ask for your support and see where it goes from here, even though it was passed today. So thank you.
Councillor Millette.
Thank you, Your Worship, and it's disheartening to hear that this Bill 23 was rammed through. This went through in less than a month. It guts the powers and the protections of the province's conservation authorities. It weakens the protections that we placed on environmentally sensitive lands in this province. Locally, under the aegis of the Quinte Conservation, we have precisely 100 provincially significant wetlands in the watershed area under the aegis of this Conservation Authority. Under this new act, 99 of those provincially significant wetlands will vanish. Protections. We will have one remaining provincially significant wetland preserved with the protections that go with it. That's the kind of bill that just got rammed through the legislature. It's appalling. There have been protests at Minister Smith's office. From what I understand from our Conservation Authority board meeting last Thursday, those protests fell on deaf ears. I can't remember a more egregious piece of legislation than this Bill 23, and you know, we're adding our name to it, but it's at this stage it's almost like wetting oneself in a dark suit. It gives you a warm feeling, but nobody notices. So I'm really disheartened by this. I'm really disheartened by the hubris of our provincial government in ramming this through. I hope that at some point cooler heads prevail, but this is a dark day for conservation authorities and conservation lands in Ontario.
Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just want to comment after Councillor Millette. Councillor Millette, Councillor Carr, and myself have been on the Quinte Conservation Board of Directors Committee, if you will, for the last 4 years. And last Thursday was the most engaging meeting, I think, for me anyway, in the 4 years. And it all related to Bill 23 and what's going on. And I think there's consensus with the 18 different municipalities that Quinte Conservation works with and serves. That's thousands of people This was a sneaky approach by the provincial government to bring it through late September, early October, as Councillor Millet touched on. People weren't paying attention. There was lots of distractions in those months, and today it was passed. So, Councillor Millet touched on the 100 wetlands, and they're provincially significant wetlands, and I did some work, and here are the lands that are affected locally, okay? Bell Creek Swamp, Belleville Marsh, Blessington Creek Marsh, Corbyville Wetland, Foxborough Swamp, Lower Salmon River Wetland, Thrasher Corner Wetland, Wellers Bay. So there's the list. Many watching and listening tonight or here this evening know of those places. That's the PSWs that are going to be affected with this bill moving forward. And there was another thing. I took some notes from last Thursday's meeting, and there was a gentleman, I believe, studied geography, he said, back in the 60s and 70s, but he made reference to it takes thousands of years for some of these wetlands to develop with biodiverse habitats. You can't just move them and expect animals and species to relocate. So we have to protect our environment. And at Quinte Conservation, they have a wonderful team there, lots of knowledge. And then we look at Eastern Ontario Conservation Authorities. We see our chair, James Fleeler, Martin Lang, Jan O'Neill out in Marmor looking after Crow Valley. Like, there's hundreds of names, or close to 100 names, so that tells me out of all the conservations in Ontario, they're supporting this. And I think there are, I'm going to say 36, if my memory serves me correct, excuse me, conservation authorities in Ontario. So it doesn't look promising, but we've seen this government pivot before, and maybe it's time now that our area and others in Ontario take the lead and say no to this. Thanks.
Councillor Carr?
Yes, thank you. And you know, it's interesting that the bill was introduced on October 25th, one day after a municipal election, and the new term of council was October 25th, November 15th, and then it passed today in the provincial legislature. The province talks a lot about the fact that municipalities are partners and we have to work collaboratively. And it certainly doesn't feel that way. And I understand that, again, this is very GTA-centric, and you can see where there's large swaths of land being bought up in the green belt with a pre-indication, obviously, that lands are going to be released for the ability to build. You know, and I understand it's an aggressive plan, and we do have a housing crisis across the country. But really and truly, and I've said this here in this place before, and I'll say it again, and until senior levels of government view housing as a home and not as a commodity, we will continue to have this problem. You know, it's interesting to see that with development charges being waived on certain things, the developer, the private sector, is made whole every single time, and profit continues. The other thing that's not lost on me is developers and land speculators buy up property and sit on it in hopes that the value goes up. It's not lost on me too that when you're building a development, your first phase and your second phase all the way to your 10 and 12 takes a decade, because the house in the 10th phase is going to be a lot more expensive than phase 1. So at the end of the day, it's profit driven. And so with that causes the constant increase in costs and the ability to enter the housing market. We even tax on the value of a home. You can't access that value unless you sell it. So if you're a senior on a fixed income and watching the value of your home go up, but yet your income is stuck, and that goes back to the point of it being viewed as a commodity and not as a place to live. Taking away some of the development charges means that there's a portion that development charges pays for social housing. That will be gone. So while the developer, the for-profit agency, gets made whole every single time, the homeless continue to be homeless. The other thing, and you know, we'll see it with zoning bylaws, but the change here is up to 3 residential units per lot as a right, with no local ability to regulate minimum dwelling size and parking space requirements beyond 1 space per unit. And we all hear of the parking complaints that we hear as we see a heavy concentration of homes and multiple people living in those homes, all driving vehicles, and we have cars parked on front yards and boulevards and across sidewalks and everything else. There's nothing that's going to be able for us to control that. The other side is that it's exempting developments under 10 units from any site plan control process. And so these are just checks and balances that make things work properly so that growth is manageable and done in a proper way. This is an absolute shotgun. This is happening no matter what. We'll pave over a wetland if it means the house. And so while it looks great to have a target, and there's professionals that say even with all this, the province is still going to come up short, is, you know, it's just frustrating to see that they just want to ram this through, and it's been said unintended consequences, but it's not lost on me that, you know, the government's obviously read in on what the consequences are, and so they're intended. They know what the consequences are going to be, and they push those aside for the sake of meeting this target. And I agree, we have to have a target, we need to move in that direction, but it needs to be done collaboratively with all levels of government, and it has to be done in a way where we're not leaving anybody behind. But the private sector continues to be made whole time and time again to the detriment of people trying to find a roof to have over their head tonight. And to me, that's the frustrating part. So I'll certainly support the motion. I think the message still needs to be sent regardless of the fact that the legislation is now passed. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, just one last minute. One of the reasons, and great to have this comment, one of the reasons why I supported it is my concern of building houses on wetlands or close to wetlands, and what's going to happen when there's floods. Who's going to pay the fiddler when there's a flood on that house and it's destroyed? And we know right now, we've had floods out in Foxborough, and they went to the Ontario government for funding, and they got very little. They come to the city and we don't have it. So if we give them the authority to build houses close to wetlands and there's floods, that's my main concern with all the other concerns, is building these houses. And we know already in the past we've allowed some buildings on close to wetlands. We have it over in Stanley Park to a certain degree. So that's one of my concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. I need a motion to rise and report. Councillor Allstop, Councillor Chatton, all in favor? Carried. First reading of bylaw, what I'll do is, Councillor Brown, you've taken a conflict on 2022-159. I'll read that first, second, and third if you want to leave, and then we'll have you come back. Okay, first bylaw is 2022-159, a bylaw amending bylaw number 2019-02, being a bylaw to appoint members to boards, committees, and special committees, BDIA Youth Engagement Committee. 2022-159, a bylaw to amend committees bylaw. Moved by Councillor Allstop, seconded by Councillor Enright Miller. All in favor? Carried. Second reading and discussion of bylaw 2022-159. Moved by Councillor Allstop, seconded by Councillor Carr. Discussion, all in favor, passed. Third reading of bylaw 2022-159, moved by Councillor Allstop, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor, carried. Okay, first reading of bylaws, 2022-157, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2019-48, being a bylaw to provide rules governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings of City Council, of Belleville City Council, and the conduct of its member, 2022-157, amendment to Section 6 of Procedural Bylaw 2019-48. Moved by Councillor Allsop, seconded by Councillor Millet. All in favor? Or pardon me, I gotta do the rest of them here. Yeah. A bylaw 2022-158, a bylaw to approve deputy mayors of the month for the years 2022, 26, 2022, 158, deputy mayors 2022, 2026. Moved by Councillor, I don't even need to move, just read them, yeah. They're getting their hands up too quick for me here. Bylaw 2022-160, a bylaw to approve and authorize the execution of amending municipality contribution agreement between the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation and the Corporation of the City of Belleville, 2022-160 OLG amending agreement. Bylaw 2022-161, a bylaw to approve and authorize a subdivision agreement between Stakos Home Limited and the Corporation of the City of Belleville, 2022-161 subdivision agreement, Stako Homes. Bylaw 22-162, a bylaw to designate and dedicate parts of a roadway as Cypress Drive and Redwood Drive. 2022-162, designate and dedicate Cypress and Redwood Drives. Bylaw 22-163, a bylaw to provide for the implementation and collection of interim tax levies for 2023. Bylaw 2022-163, interim tax levy and dates. Bylaw 2022-164, a bylaw to establish an asset manager review fund. 2022-164, asset management reserve fund bylaw. Bylaw 2022-165, a bylaw to establish a police service reserve fund. 2022-165, police service reserve fund. Bylaw 2022-166, a bylaw to establish an environmental reserve fund. 2022-166, environmental reserve fund. Bylaw 2022-167, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2011-40, being a bylaw to approve and authorize an early retirement incentive plan for the City of Belleville. 2022-167, bylaw and retirement incentive plan. 2922-168, a bylaw to rescind bylaw number 2004-26, being a bylaw to adopt a representative comparator group for non-union staff for the City of Belleville. 2022-168, rescind bylaw 204-26, comparator municipalities. Bylaw 2022-169, a bylaw to rescind bylaw number 2016-188, being a bylaw to authorize the administrative employee salary and operating procedures, benefit schedules for employees of the City of Belleville. 2022-169, rescind bylaw 2016-88, amend group. Moved by Councillor Allsop, seconded by Councillor Chatton. All in favor? Carried. Second reading of bylaws and discussion. Bylaw 2022-157, bylaw 2022-158, bylaw 2022-160, bylaw 22-161, bylaw 22-162, bylaw 22-163, bylaw 22-164, bylaw 22-165, bylaw 22-166, bylaw 22-167, bylaw 22-168, bylaw 22-169. Any discussion? Councillor Carr.
Thank you.
Motion by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Allsop. Discussion?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to introduce a tabling motion for bylaw 2022-169.
Okay, tabling motion moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Millet. All in favor? See hands? Carried. So that gets, pardon me? Original. Yeah, so original motion to pass second reading, moved by, that was already moved, wasn't it? Yeah, all in favor? Carried. Third reading of bylaws. Third reading of bylaw 2022-157. Bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-48, being a bylaw to provide rules governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings of City Council, conduct of its members. 22, just do the numbers, it's fine if you guys are. 2022-158, bylaw 22-160, bylaw 2022-161, bylaw 2022-162, bylaw 22-163, bylaw 2022-164, bylaw 22-165, bylaw 22-166. Bylaw 2022-167, bylaw 22-168. Moved by Councillor Millet, Councillor Carr, all in favor? Carried. New business. Councillor Alstott.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on the deputation we had earlier from Bev Woods and Gift from the Heart. Just asking for a staff report that we look into a request for areas around the city where she could park and then hook up the vehicle, as well as the feasibility and funding source for the $10,000 request that had been made.
Okay, do I need a seconder for that? Discussion. I'll need 2/3 for this. All in favor? I need to see hands, sorry. Carried. Any more new business? Okay, motions, non-notice of motions. Councillor Carr.
Thank you. I have two notice of motions. Just bear with me. First one is that City Council convene a health and homelessness summit in early 2023 to focus on how to collaboratively influence lasting, impactful change to address the chronic homelessness and mental health crisis in our city, and that invitations be extended to representatives from the federal, provincial, and municipal governments, including relevant municipal departments, health and mental health care providers, not-for-profit housing providers and developers, non-for-profit service organizations, community outreach groups, and residents, and most importantly, individuals experiencing these chronic issues.
Okay.
The second notice of motion is that bylaw number 2019-48, a bylaw to provide rules for governing the calling, place, and proceedings of meetings of the City of Belleville Council and the conduct of its members, be amended by amending Part 5, Section 5.4, subsection 2, to read that the regular council meeting shall commence at 5 p.m., except as may otherwise authorized by the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Announcements? Seeing none. Councillor Kelly?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, for announcements. I just wanted to thank the Festival of Lights Committee. Last Friday, we had the kickoff here for the festive season in the city, and I was down at Westwicks Park at the Lion Pavilion, and on the way out, I checked with some security, and they told me that they expected the crowd to be in around 6,000 to 7,000 people. So thanks to everybody on the committee that helped out with that, and it was wonderful to participate too with the Chamber and the City's Santa Claus Parade. I saw some young kids very happy, smiling, anticipating Santa. Particularly Councillor Alsop's kids seemed very excited. So well done.
Thank you for that. So I'll need a resolution that bylaw number 2022-170, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on November 28, 22, be read a first, second, and third time and finally pass this 28th day of November 2022. Councillor Brown, Councillor Alstott, all in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor